Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. I hope this finds you in good health. My exposure, all right? Yeah, okay. And secure. Welcome back. So many things going through my mind today. Let's continue with this Go show on consecrating an image of Shakyamuni Buddha made by Shijo Kingo. Is it a disclaimer? Is it a clarification? Here's what I want to say. I want to remind you again as I read this Go show that this was written in a time, in fact, is the date in here? Before the wide distribution of the mandala. Yeah, this is in 1276. Credible information, of course, but I don't want you to get the impression, as some have in the past, that if they create their own object of focus, that is just as valid as a mandala. Do not get that idea. Pictures, statues, those things. No. Thousands of years ago, there was no mandala, a picture of what was a representation of Shakyamuni Buddha, had its value because it was handmade, not like today where you can get a picture of any, hell, you can get a computer to create a picture by description, right? AI. Which is automated intelligence, not artificial intelligence. We don't even know what intelligence is, right? So how can we make it artificially? Side rant. Okay. Point is, it's always been about our personal, intimate connection with enlightenment. And how do we get there? It's a conceptual. Buddhism is about the mind, attitude, intent. Yeah. And today, in our era of extreme distractions, stop looking at your cell phone. I wanted to say that faster, but my mouth doesn't move so good anymore. Pictures don't work. Nichiren knew that. Nichiren knew that if we're going to focus on the insight of the Lotus teachings, we needed the Lotus teachings to focus on. That's why the mandala, yeah? No statues, no pictures, no trophies, no distractions. But what you're going to hear him talk to Shijo Kingo about is that relationship of his creating this. Shijo Kingo is doing everything he can, even against the wishes of his employer, Lord Emma, right? To practice Buddhism, not just Buddhism, but correct Buddhism, as elucidated by Nichiren, a man who's being quite reviled and upsetting many authorities, because he's saying, no, the emperor's naked. Look, this is how you practice Buddhism. Moreover, they pretended that the doctrine had originated in India. He's talking about the true word people now. And in this way, deceived and misled the latter-day scholars of China and Japan. No one knows the truth of the matter, but all alike assent to and put a resolute mind in the assertions of the true word school. This has been going on now for more than 500 years. This isn't just a TikTok trend. It's been going on for centuries. So yeah, me pointing out the truth is ruffling a lot of feathers. But Shijo Kingo, please realize This being the case, the wooden and painted images that were made and consecrated before the time of the Threefold school, when the Tendai practices were followed, in other words, as I read before, the Tendai practices were deeply intimate, mindful awareness of the transmigration from samsara to this clarity of mind, this renge, this Buddha-ness, yeah? When images, focus tools were made in order to center the mind on that objective were made, then that was the spirit with which, the ichinen with, the attitude and intent with which one created a focal point, whether it was a colorful representation of the worlds and the teachings of Buddhism, or simply a picture or statue of Shakyamuni. The intent was to transcend those things, be reminded by those things of what one was trying to open in one's mind. But as we progress in history, those things become themselves fetishized. Oh, look at that. My picture of Shakyamuni has him with the little curl there on the... Yeah, isn't that good? What are you doing? See, that doesn't work for us. Nichiren knew that. He goes on to say, but those in the temples and Padaitas built after the true word absconded with the teachings, trying to give themselves credentials, posing. They adopted the eye-opening ceremony, right? The eye-opening, the eye of the mind, the intimate relationship with Buddha-ness ceremony produced very little benefit. Since there are many instances of this, I will not go into detail. So, we'll have to research further in other writings if we want Nichiren to deep dive into this. But that's not the purpose of this letter. The purpose of this letter is to assure Shijo Kingo of the strength of his practice and the proper attitude to have in his practice, right? This Buddha of yours that he's sculpted to, because there is no mandala, right? At some point, Nichiren, I'm sure, offered him a mandala, but at this stage of the game, Nichiren hadn't fully developed that yet. This Buddha of yours, however, is a living Buddha. What does he mean by that? And this is a translation, so the living Buddha is his mind. It's his intent. It differs in no respect from the wooden images of the Buddhas made by King Udayana. Now he's going way back in history, exemplifying the kind of commitment and the idea of these earlier practitioners, right? Or that fashioned by King Bibisara. Surely Brahma, Shakra, and the deities of the sun and moon and the four heavenly kings have attended you as a shadow accompanies a body and protect you always. This is the first point I wish to make. So what he's really talking about is honoring Shijo Kingo's effort, his sincerity, which is always Nichiren's primary point, right? You can chant all day long like you're making a peanut butter sandwich and mumble through it, and that has very little value. Add your commitment, your resolve, your I'm quoting him again, single-mindedly meet Buddha, meet with your Buddha-ness. If your resolve is strong, your ichinen strong, your intent, you don't have to chant 1,000,000 times. Remember, he said each character, Namu, Myo, is like chanting or singing or reciting the entire sutra, the entire breadth of teachings of the Lotus. Ho, once again, reciting the entire sutra. Reng, Ge, Kyo, each character is like reciting the entire sutra. If you chant like that, you know, what the hell is that? But you chant Na Mu Myo Ho Renge Kyo. Whoa, you feel it in your bones. Yeah, that's why I'm always telling, savor your practice. Savor it. This Buddha of yours, however, your daily records also indicate that each year during the 90-day period from the 8th day of the 4th month through the 15th day of the 7th month, you perform acts of devotion to the deity of the sun. See, there's a lot of... This is Japan in the medieval ages, yeah? And the sun is a very important thing to Japan. They're an island nation. The sun comes over the ocean in the morning and alights over their nation. They're very connected with the rising sun. Yes, it's the land of the rising sun, Japan, Nippon. The deity of the sun lives in a palace made of the 7 kinds of treasures. 7 kinds of treasures. Sound familiar? The treasure tower? This palace occupies an area of 816 ri, or 51 yohanas. Units of measure, we don't know exactly what they are. In the midst of it dwells the deity of the sun, attended by 2 consorts, victorious and invincible. That's the name of the consorts. To his right and left range the 7 luminaries and the 9 luminaries, and in front of him stands the heavenly goddess Marichi. The deity of the sun rides a chariot made of the 7 treasures and drawn by 8 fine horses, and in the space of 1 day and 1 night he circles about the 4 continents, acting as an eye to all the living beings who dwell in them. Is Japan the first place in human history to have this kind of personification of an act of nature? Right? When the Neanderthal were roaming the Eurasian continent, did they take for granted that the sun came up in the morning, went down at night? Did they not experience fears, as does a child today, when the sun goes down, that it might not come back? Or did they just take it for granted? I wasn't there, although I'm pretty old. I'm not that old. But this is the kind of acts of nature, the functions of the universe that mystified us, that still mystify people. That's mystifying. But I say this because if you've studied any Egyptology, the pharaohs, the sun god Ra, right, was said to ride through the sky on his papyrus ship, circle the world and come back the next day. The sun god Ra. So the Japanese weren't the first to think of this, right? And that's a visual kind of not a praise, an homage, a humility to the powers of the universe, yeah? So then he says, in the case of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, as well as the other deities, we hear that they bestow superb great rewards, but with our dull eyes, we have yet to see it. In the case in our eyes, he's not talking about these. He's talking about our mental eye, our perceptive eye, yes? In the case of the sun deity, however, there can be no doubt, for his great rewards are before our very eyes every morning, every day. Yes. Were it not for Shakyamuni, the Lord of Teachings, how could such great rewards as these be bestowed? And were it not for the power of the wonderful sutra of the one vehicle, how could such marvels appear before us? It is wondrous to contemplate. So this is all, everything he's talking about relaying to Shijo Kingo here isn't about his pretty picture or his pretty statue or how wonderful that statue is and what it represents. He's talking about attitude. He's talking about what's going on in your mind, Shijo Kingo. How do you see the import of the teachings? What is your intent in your practice? That's what all of this is about. He's not spending a lot of time on the quality, size, nature of the thing, because that's not where the practice is. It's in the mind. It would be easy to miss that in this translation or any translation, right? In inquiring how to repay this deity for his favor, we find that in the ages before the appearance of Buddhism, people of a discerning nature all bowed before him or presented offerings, and all of them received evidence of great rewards in return. At the same time, those who turned against him were all punished. He's not, who's the him he's talking about? The sun god. We have to respect the functions of life. Now, if we consider that the Buddhist writings have to say, we may note that the Golden Light Sutra states, quote, the deity of the sun and the deity of the moon, because they listen to this sutra, are able to obtain vitality in abundance. It's kind of a seesaw, this way of talking about the nature of the universe, the nature of life, the nature of our minds. It's a little self-congratulatory because this sutra is so wonderful, the sun and the moon listen to it. But that's not what that sounds like the sun and the moon are obeying our words, but that's not what they mean. And it may be a fallacy of the translation as well. Keep that in mind. But I think it's pretty obvious, with all the study you and I have done, that what's meant by that is that because of the deep felt homage or recognition of the powers of the sun and moon explored in our teaching, right? Then we experience abundance. The sun and moon could care less. It's not about the sun and moon. It's about our awareness, our perception, our appreciation for the sun and moon in our lives. See, the sphere of experience is always so far beyond this self, this me body. It's always inclusive of, oh yeah, this body, it's a function of what everything in the universe provides. That makes sense? Self and environment, not separate things. And the Sovereign King's Sutra states, quote, through the power of this Sutra King, these luminaries are able to circle the four continents, end quote. Again, a lot of personification, not just in Buddhism, but in almost all ancient writings, yeah? Take ideas, influences, nature, and we give them a name, a character name, so we can discuss them conceptually and identify them, because that's our samsaric habit. We identify everything. You should understand, therefore, that it is the power of the Buddhist law that enables the deities of the sun and moon to make their rounds of the four continents. Again, it sounds like we are creating the powers of the sun and moon, but it's about recognizing our involvement, their involvement, our unity in life. The Golden Light and Sovereign King Sutra are mere expedient teachings leading to the Lotus Sutra. When compared with the Lotus Sutra, with the Myoho Renge Kyo, they are like milk compared with ghee, or metal compared with precious gems. And yet, inferior as these sutras are, they enable the heavenly deities to circle the four continents. How much more power can these deities gain, then, by tasting the sweet ghee of the Myoho Renge Kyo? Again, remember, this is the mental seesaw of the teachings, yes? To put it another way, that's an interesting analogy. We're able to put men in outer space, right? The International Space Station. We're looking at building a settlement on the moon. We're rocketing ships throughout our solar system. Tiny as it is in relation to the universe, still, that is an amazing feat. Wouldn't you agree? So the question is, how valuable is math? Right? Before you can figure out how to construct a rocket engine, how to manifest such concentrated energy that you can lift tens of tons of steel and humans safely into the atmosphere, off of the surface of this earth. How much do you owe to mathematics to be able to help you to figure out how to make that happen safely, let alone at all? And this is what Nichiren is saying here. These earlier teachings allowed you to conceive of the sun and moon as intimate to your life itself. How much more profound if those are early teachings, maths, geometry, algebra. They had their value. They still have their value, but they are not the culminating teachings of electromagnetic force, quantum theory, calculus, staying with the math analogy, right? But the calculus would be unintelligible without these earlier teachings. So, Buddhism doesn't throw anything away. It's just very focused on what is the proper order of things, what is the most valuable thing. What is the most expedient thing? Therefore, in the introduction chapter of the Lotus Sutra, the Immeasurable Meanings, 3 chapters actually, we find the deities of the sun and moon ranged side by side and the deity of the stars. And in the Teacher of the Law chapter, within the Lotus Sutra, it is predicted that the deity of the sun will attain supreme perfect enlightenment and be known as the thus come one, fire sustaining. Again, this naming convention, this personage thing, it's a fascinating device, yeah? Skillful means. In addition to all this, your late father initiated this worship of the sun deity, and you have succeeded him in the second generation, carrying on these ceremonies over a long period of time. So how could the deity possibly abandon you? You've made a spiritual commitment with your life and your actions to humble yourself in the presence of the these forces of life, these forces of the universe. I, Nichiren, have also put my trust in this deity, and in this manner have carried on my struggles in Japan over the past several years, as Shijo would well know. Already I have the feeling that I have achieved victory. Such clear great rewards can only be attributed to this deity. Or more correctly, my attitude. There are many other admirable points in your daily records, but I cannot go into them all here. In other words, you know how much I respect you, Shijo Kingo. I understand your efforts. It's not just in this one thing you're asking me about. We're focusing on Shijo Kingo's attitude, his intent. All this other stuff is just identification. As for the thing that I admire most, Nichiren says, in your letters in the past, you have from time to time mentioned your concern for your parents. And when I read your present letter, I could not hold back my tears, so moved was I by the pity at your sorrow over the thought that your parents might perhaps be in hell. That's a translation. But this is a complex matter, and I talk about it in other videos, this idea of time, right? And previous time, future time, life, moment to moment, birth, death. That after our because you're talking about a very filial culture right here, a lot of respect for ancestors, especially one's parents. Even if you don't get along with them, it's not about that. It's about the debt you owe for they're providing the passage for you to instantiate, create a sentient mind, and experience Buddhism, Buddhahood. Where else could that happen? So for that alone, they should be honored. But when they die, they're extinct. They're no longer here. The sentient minds are gone. So they don't go anywhere. They just cease. However, they've impacted our lives the whole time they were alive, certainly, even if we never talked to them. It's our awareness of them that's at stake. Because we carry that past in our minds. And again, that can be a source of suffering, as Shakyamuni would say. So we don't want to get rid of them. We honor them. We honor them for every moment that we have. But what Nichiren is talking about here is the tendency to lament our parents, which are long gone, but our memories, our holdings in our mind, in our karma of those entities, and how we continue to respect. Because that's ourselves. Those are aspects of ourselves. We may say that's my mother, that's my father, that's my great-grandmother, that's my, right? But it's a mistake to see it as external. It's our experience continuing in our lives. They're long gone. They feel nothing. There is no them anymore. But we have a hard time letting that go, don't we? Among the Buddha's disciples was one called the Venerable Maudgalyayana. His father was named Kisen Shishi, and his mother was named Shodainyo. His mother, after passing away, fell into the realm of hungry spirits. Did she fall into a realm known as hungry spirits? No. His remembrance, his thinking about his mother, sunk into this craving. That makes sense, doesn't it? When you hear somebody say, I miss my mom, what they're really saying is there's a little baby inside of them going, Mommy, 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 recognizing that she's not around anymore. We fool ourselves into thinking, oh, my mom went into a bad place, or my daughter's in a better place. The only place your mother, father, whatever exists is in your mind. Now, see, it would seem to me, and I know some people say, gosh, you're a cold so-and-so. No, what I'm saying very compassionately to you is if you know that they're in your mind, then you can do something about it. Because it's yours to own, to change, to affect, to influence. And how often has Nichiren talked about that? You want to raise your mother out of the hell of hungry ghosts? Chant, raise your life condition, and save your mother. Do you not see the obvious circle here? It's all about your attitude, your intent. If you're feeling bad about somebody, you are feeling bad about somebody. So change the way you feel, and the way you feel about others will also elevate. It's such a simple formula, and it's real. It's so obvious. But we like the mystical, magical. All right. While Madagdayana was still an ordinary mortal, he was unaware of this fact and so had no reason to grieve over it. But after he became a disciple of the Buddha, he achieved the status of an arhat, and acquiring the heavenly eye, much more profound understanding of the engine of life, he was able to perceive that his mother was in the realm of hungry spirits. He'd left her there in his mind. He felt guilty. When he became aware of this, he made offerings of food and drink to her, but these only turned into flame and increased her torment. Thereupon he rushed back to the Buddha and reported what had happened. Think how this must have felt at that time. Full of magic and mysticism. He couldn't get rid, what this actually says is he couldn't get rid of the feelings of guilt he had for not having considered his mom for so long. This filial culture that says, how could you not consider your mother every day? Your debt of gratitude to her. This is about you, your attitude and intent. That had nothing to do with her. She's dead, she's gone. The Flower Garland Sutra. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped a paragraph. Now you are an ordinary person, Shijo Kingo, possessing no more than the physical eyes, and so you cannot see what realm your parents now occupy and grieve at the thought that they may be in hell. You just made my point. This is itself an expression of filial devotion. Brahma, Shakra, and the deities of the sun and moon and the four heavenly kings are certain to look upon you with pity. Because this is your experience, not theirs. This is your mind. I know I'm running long. All right, I'm going to stop here. I just want to close with this thought. Does it not seem obvious to you, as it does to me, that although this is a letter from Shijo Kingo asking about how he should consecrate this statue he worked so hard on to honor Shakyamuni and his Buddhism, that Nichiren spends so much, all of his time really, talking about Shijo Kingo's attitude, that's what his question's really about? What should your mental intent be? It's about Namo Myo Renge Kyo. Yeah, nice statue. You worked really hard. You poured your heart into it. That has merit. That's your effort. That's your commitment. Now translate that into your practice. That is what will bring you Buddha-ness. Not the statue, not the picture, not this mandala. It's a tool to direct your mind. Namo Myo Renge Kyo. In that way, it has great value. But that value is held in your mind, in your heart, not in that scroll. What does Nichiren say? Never seek this Gohonzon outside your flesh and body. It is of your making. This mind that emerges from this apparatus is where Buddha-ness lies. It's where Gohonzon lies. Thank you for listening. Thank you for liking and subscribing. So important to grow our Sangha. Patrons, amazing. Thank you for your support. Those of you who've bought books from the bookstore, you're patrons. Mandalas from the Mandala store, the Gohonzon store. It's funny to say it that way. Threefoldlotus.com, lots of free stuff, links to ebooks. I've tried to make an essential list on the ebooks page of the most focused on this practice. But if there's some I've missed, maybe you've perused the bookstore and you've thought, I wish you'd make that into an ebook. Let me know. Email me. Put it in the comments. In the meantime, please take care of your health. Keep your practice strong. And I'll see you in the next one, okay? Bye for now.